Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to our channel Between Two Mediums. We're so glad you're here. My name's Nancy, and I'm an Akashic Records reader and medium and a Reiki practitioner. And I connect with loved ones who've passed on, offer healing energy, and also channel insights that guide your spiritual journey.
Yes, and I'm Kathy, and I'm an evidential medium. I deliver messages from spirit and to be of service to those without voices from the spirit world, to bring comfort, guidance, healing, um, to the loved ones here still with us here.
Yeah, so we created this space together. For those of you who are kind of looking to explore connection to spirit, and we're just going to explore everything from spirit connections to healing energy and spiritual growth, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're glad you're here with us. And we're going to be sharing stories on this channel and insights and practical advice to help you feel more connected and grounded and aligned with your high self.
Yes, and today our purpose is to share personal stories as evidence that life continues after death.
Mhm.
So like as for me as an evidential medium, um, I
Let's tell
would
them everybody what that is. Maybe.
so an evident yeah, an evidential
I,
medium
yeah.
is just a medium that provides verifiable information from spirit. So you're comfortable knowing that I'm actually connected to that person. It's not
Mhm.
just, oh, they love you, they wish you well. It's more of this is how they pass. This is verifiable information, so you know and have trust that and that
Mhm.
connection is
Mhm.
there. But in doing these readings, I've witnessed time and time again that it's what I have come to adopt as my truth is that while the body may die, the soul continues. It continues, and our journey continues without the body. And through countless of readings, I know, Nancy, that you've done and what I've done, and many, many, many other people, but when we connect with those who cross over, and bring through these precise details about their lives, or things that were going on, these shared memories, these validations, they all just cannot be a coincidence. It can't be a lucky guess that we're
Yeah.
just guessing the right stuff. It's not, because I see, I feel, I know, sometimes I hear, and th that's just the way that spirits connect, trying to communicate with me. Everybody has
Mhm.
their own way, to show us that they still are around us and very much involved in our lives. Um, they're, when we set up to do a reading, I believe that when a client contacts me and said, "Let's do a reading," I need to say, "Okay," and we decide upon a date that works for both of us. I believe they're doing the same thing on the other. They're excited. They know it's coming.
Oh,
So
yeah, for
so
sure.
they're preparing
Mhm.
to be here with us just as much as we're preparing to do the reading. And I think it's an exciting thing that can happen. And the evidence is just, to me, the evidence is the proof that there's an energy that has continued on.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we want to spend time talking about this because I think it is really incredible when we can share our own experiences with it firsthand about what we've seen in readings or felt in readings or heard in readings to know um, that it is true and real because I think a lot of people are like, yeah, but you might have, the medium might have known that because of this. Or I think on a TV show, they probably go behind the scenes first and interview them. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
actually being there to witness it and to know when somebody says, "Oh my gosh, you said that, and that's because of this," or I recognize that. It's just amazing, and that brings it home and shows that there's just a very clear thing to show that life survives beyond, not life survives beyond death, but this consciousness is still there beyond death.
For
Um,
sure, and I think that's what we get asked a lot, right? How
mhm.
did you know? How do you get these messages? We get asked about these kind of, or how about these kind of experiences, and that are proof. I think
Yeah,
people are wanting the proof.
yeah.
Um,
It's interesting. Yeah, I just even had a reading today, even with when I do Akashic Records readings and it's, guides, masters, who knows who's coming through. I'm more about the what message, what are the message rather than the who sometimes with those. But it's like, how did you know that about me? Like, how did you already know that? That I didn't even, and a lot of people don't even ask the question before I've answered it. And they feel like they just are seen and known because I'm saying things that there's just no way. Um, that they would know, that I would know specifically to say that to that person that day. And he's
Right.
like, I don't know. I don't even know that it's going to be something. And they're like, oh my gosh, I was just saying that this morning, and here you went ahead and said that to me to help me. And it just makes sense. So yeah, it's just
Yeah.
wild and wonderful when it happens.
Yeah. And again, so we're going to be sharing some stories today. Um, again, I believe that it's the only thing that dies is the body. I do think we live with a um, conception of what death
Mhm.
is.
Mhm.
We believe it to be one thing. We're told, we're brought up to believe this one thing. I do think it's different. I can't tell you what it's like, but I do believe that the body dies, but the soul definitely continues. So, so Nancy, can you tell us about a reading that you did that really, for you, really provided proof that people who have passed on are still around?
Yeah, there was one reading I had early on, because I had come at it from being an Akashic Records reader and connecting with guides and spirit, and wasn't paying attention to the who it was, like I just said.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing a reading for somebody, and they said, first of all, one said, that sounds like my grandmother using words and language like her. But the one that really drove it home for me was this reading for this woman, and this I could feel the energy next to me. It almost felt like he was whispering in my ear. I could feel this
Oh,
warmth next to
wow.
my head. And he said, um, tell her somebody's talking smack about her. And I'm like
Seriously.
in my head communicating with him. I'm like, heck no. I'm like over 50. I don't talk like that. And so I'm going to say it better. I'm going to say somebody's not saying very nice things about you. And I said that, and he, before she could respond, it was like in Ghost where when they're Whoopi Goldberg's having that interaction with Patrick Swayze, because he's like, no, I want you to say it like this. Somebody's talking smack about her. And I said, no, I am not going to say it like that. I'm going to say this. And it went on for like, it felt like back and forth for a long time, but it probably was just a couple times. And it was,
Right.
I finally said it like that. And she's like, well, I know who it is now. And it was like the one phrase that was going to
Oh,
validate I said a lot of other things before and after, but that was the one phrase. And then she's like, okay, but now ask him this. And, I didn't ask him the question because that's not really what I want to do during reading. It's, I get the energy easier when I'm just channeling and connecting with them. But that was a block. And then with other people with language, like I work with kids. I don't use bad words because I don't want them to slip out anytime. But a lot of times spirit will want me to talk like that because that is who they were. That was their personality. Those were the words in the language that they use. So instances like that where I know 100% it's not me and the person can recognize them through that, the way they speak
mhm.
is proof for myself and proof for them as well.
For
Yeah.
sure. And I think some people are thinking, oh, like the proof is going to be you're going to lead me, tell me where the lost key is to the safe that has the money, or
Right.
it's, but
Right.
when you're overlooking those kind of simple, obvious and significant pieces of evidence, you
Right.
don't cuss and suddenly you feel like you need to say things a certain way.
Right. Yeah, it
That's
was pretty wild. And
that is
he
such
even
a
gave his name. And I was just so shocked that it came through because sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And it wasn't a common name. And I was like, I'm just gonna say
oh
it. And she's like, yeah, that's him. Ask him. She like wanted to had some things to settle with him, like to get, but anyway, it was
yeah,
a fine
yeah.
reading. It went well, but it was just a memorable one that I remember.
But it's undeniable evidence is what that was.
Yeah.
You didn't know this person to know any of this. You didn't even
No.
know how that person would have talked.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's beautiful. That's great. That's right
Yeah,
there.
that
You
was
trust
beautiful.
that there is something more.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah.
Tell us a story about that you've had.
Um, well, I knew we were going to talk about this today, so I was trying to think. And I think one of the most things that this one reading that had evidence that was so mind blowing for me was I was doing a reading for a woman where her family member, I was I connected with her family member and I was bringing through how she passed and I wasn't understanding it. So I'm like, she feels trapped. And I felt like I was down in a dark place and like I could not figure out this evidence. And I'm like, do you understand that I felt like my hands were bound together?
Mhm.
And she said yes. And I'm like,
Oh.
really? So in the reading, I'm like jaw drop, like, "Did you
Yeah.
say yeah?" I said, "You understand that I can't move. I'm I'm not able to break free of anything." Like I couldn't tell if I was underground, if I was under something heavy or what, but I knew I was under something and blocked and she kept saying, "Yes, yes, yes." And then and so then it was that little bit and then all of a sudden I die suddenly.
What?
And yes, that's it's funny because the sitter is sitting there and she's like, "Uh-huh, yes, yes, yes."
No
And
big
I'm
deal.
like the one
Yeah.
saying, "Are you kidding?" Um, and unfortunately, it was a family member who was kidnapped,
Oh, no.
violent crime, kidnapped.
Wow.
And when she was bound in a car and pushed down on I don't remember now if she was in a trunk or if she was on the floor of the car, but they were, sup- holding her down.
Mhm.
And then they wrecked the car and she
Oh.
went flying through the windshield.
Oh my gosh. That's
Yeah.
it's
Um,
awful.
it was awful. It was god
It's
awful, right?
also awful when you're giving that to somebody in a reading, dude. I don't know.
Well, and I did not talking about the whole reading here. She wanted me to continue. Like, of
Okay.
course, I was like, "Oh my, are you sure you want me to continue? Are you sure this is accurate?" Like, because I
Yeah.
would never, and something like this is very
Yeah. Yeah.
touchy. And if I'm starting to get this information, I'm certainly going to ask
Yeah.
if they're comfortable with me continuing. But
Right.
we did continue, and the reading turned out to be, yeah, I think, healing for her.
Yeah, that's how it is. Yeah.
So that's a good thing. That's always our intention is to be of help,
Yeah.
not to be dramatic. That one though, that was, I mean, what other evidence? I had no idea anything about this. And it was out of the country. This kidnapping even happened out of the country. So it's not like it was something that I saw on the news.
Yeah.
This did not happen in my world. I was not aware of this, but she was able to validate all of it. And to
Wow.
me, I mean, what obvious evidence that life
Yeah.
continues, that this girl's still here. She brought up other things about the family um,
Wow.
that's going on since she passed away. I mean, yeah,
Wow.
it's an incredible experience sometimes. It
Wow.
really is. Yeah. Do you have another
Yeah.
story that you can think of that,
Um,
or do you want? 'Cause I'm thinking of one.
yeah, I have
Okay,
one
go for it.
that is a little happier than that.
I know. I didn't mean to
Gosh,
bring it down.
that is like there are those, that are really emotional. And this one was emotional for a good thing. I was able to feel that it was an older man and he was very charming, dapper kind of guy, and she could
Yeah.
take all that information and it went on all these different
Mhm.
things that he was understanding. And it was actually towards the beginning, it was another medium, and that'll come into play in another second why that was important. It was in the beginning when I was practicing more. Um, but he kept saying treasure as he was leaving. Treasure, treasure, treasure. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, all right, treasure. And she started crying and he said, you are my treasure. And she's like, I'll talk about that in a little bit. And then we went on, but she was crying. And then she's like, he wants to help you practice. Do you see anything about him? I mean, he was kind of a, interesting guy, and there's some things you can find out about him. So anyway, I practiced with him, and I was able to get, he liked to collect cars, and he had, this one red car that was his favorite. So different things like that, whereas he was actually being the one helping me with getting information. The two of them were both helping me to improve, and it was really a beautiful experience. But I said to her afterwards, like, Treasure, why did that make you cry? And she was this older woman from somewhere in the UK, I believe, and she had this beautiful accent. And she said, in her way, she said, we were married. It was my husband. We were married
Oh,
for, I don't know, 60 some years, I believe. She maybe 50 something, a long time.
yeah.
And she said, when we got married, our song was this song that we play in our country that meant something to us. And it said, you are my sunshine, you are my treasure. And every night before they went to bed, he would say, you are my treasure, and she would say, you are my sunshine, or vice
Oh,
versa. And
gosh.
that was his key, to say to her that yes, it was him there on the other
And you
side.
said it. You were able to,
I
you
was to
got it
say,
to
like,
bring it
Treasure,
through.
you're my treasure. And I don't know. I was like, I don't know, is she, like, treasure,
That's
is there a treasure box? I don't know, something. And she said, no, like, that was every night before we went to bed. We would say that back and forth to each other. That was our thing. That was our wedding dance. That was our years of marriage. And it really just was so touching to be able to bring that through when it was such a simple word. Like I said, treasure to somebody, yes, I could say to you, and we would make something up, but for them, it was
right.
a clear, specific piece of evidence that it was him. And yeah, they were a beautiful couple. That
That's
that was one of my
pretty
favorite
incredible.
readings of all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Yeah.
incredible. And it's
Yeah.
another, like, we don't necessarily know why we say things the way we say them sometimes. And like you're
Yeah.
thinking treasure box or something to find, and
Yeah.
here
He
it's
was
just
so
the
emphatic
word.
about it. And I was like, okay, fine. I was stubborn, I guess, in the beginning, not
Well, I
saying
think it's,
everything I was getting.
yeah.
And then, like, I learned from those two individuals to, like, say it, get it, say it.
Just say it. Yeah.
Stop
Yeah.
messing it up. How about you? I want to hear another story from you. That first one was,
Oh, the
that was
connecting
really
one. That was
amazing.
crazy. Yeah. Um, stories of just obvious evidence of life that continues. I guess I'm going to talk about a little bit different than what we've already talked about. The um, not just sometimes you going into a reading, you can kind of start feeling before the reading starts.
Mhm.
So that's kind of common. I usually ask them to please wait because I don't know if that's for the right
Yeah.
person or what.
Yeah.
I ask them to wait. But I can tell you about a reading I did. It was kind of another one that was kind of um touchy, that I would ask for permission to keep going. I
Yeah.
brought through somebody's father who was not the in life, gave evidence that he was not the dream father. He was not the person who was there for their child
Mhm.
as they should have been, who was actually not there very much, did some things that were not
Wow.
really legal, I'll say it, and ended up in jail, and then made really poor choices. Didn't have much of a relationship with
Mhm.
their child, and their child is the one I was reading. It was an adult. Um, at the time that the child was an adult when I was reading them, but and his father passed away when this person I was reading was a teenager. And so, like, just the honesty, owning their actions in life. Not everybody comes through and, oh, I love you. There
Yeah.
you're wonderful. Not everybody has that experience with a loved one here.
Mhm.
Um, so again, the evidence was pretty spot on, and that he just was not very supportive and not there for his child. Um, and then what's interesting, so we did the reading. Um, it wasn't feeling good in that it was apparently an accurate reading, but it wasn't feeling, um, we ended it on an okay note. Like he's okay now.
Mhm.
He's owned all these things. He's telling you he owns them. He sees how he was to you. So the reading was over and it didn't feel good. And so this is my point that I'm making, the evidence that there's more. I could this energy, his father, who I was reading,
Oh,
kept coming to me later later after the reading.
wow.
I was in the shower. I knew I wasn't done. I wasn't finished with him.
Wow.
I knew that, and I don't normally, I know people say, how do you you know when you're out and about, do you feel energy and all?
Yeah, right.
I really don't. I go to work and I do my work, and then when I'm not working, I'm not really open. But this guy was still with me, and I knew I wasn't done. So do I decided I was going to sit the next day and
Okay.
finish the reading on my own without my sitter, and
Oh,
then I would contact my sitter, and I had the most beautiful reading the next day. It was almost like I don't know why, we just didn't finish. He owned everything he did. He acknowledged, and I remember he kept saying that the dad who was coming through from spirit was saying to the person sitting in front of me, "You got the short stick.
mm,
You drew the short stick when it came to me."
mm,
And he owned all of that, which is a start. It's a beginning. It's a it's not a blaming, "Oh, I didn't wasn't that bad," or "You're just imagining things," or whatever. He owned all of his actions. So the next day, it was this most beautiful
wow.
reading about how he's grown, and now how he sees his son, and how he sees how incredible his son is despite the rough start
Okay.
that he had in life.
Wow.
So that to me was evidence, and maybe it's more evidence for me because I felt it. I knew I wasn't done. This father did not get to finish his
Oh,
message. So by me sitting the next day, I kind of had to because
yeah.
it was bothering me and I kept
Yeah.
feeling it. So
That's wild.
I called
I
his
was gonna
son,
say,
who was
did
I
you reach out to
did.
the
I
person?
did. I
Okay.
reached out and I asked, "Do you I got more. Do you want to hear what I
Okay.
got?" So I had written it all down. And he said, "Yes, of course." And so then it turned into be like, I feel like it was a beautiful experience then.
Yeah.
It was just I feel like there was lots of, people, we do readings for the people who are sitting in front of us, but I do believe those who have passed on have things they want to say too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that can't be anything but evident. I just can't, I wouldn't have ever have made any of
Yeah,
that
that's the
stuff
thing.
up.
Yeah, that's the thing. I tell people like I can hardly put my sentences together and think of what I want to say, let alone try and predict what you want to hear and how you want to hear it. Like it's just not
Exactly.
something I spend my free time doing.
And I think it's beautiful that if we could just relax a little bit and think how the evidence is right there in front of us.
Yeah.
It's that we get these feelings, just even if you're not a medium, just these little flutters of feelings and thoughts of somebody when you're not expecting to be thinking about them. That's all evidence. It's just whether
Yeah,
we trust it to
exactly.
be or
I
not.
know.
So
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many stories, right? So many stories, and hopefully over, in future episodes we'll get to more and more. But
Yeah.
those were two that stood out to me as it can't be anything but proof of an energy that continues
Yeah.
after we die.
I'm so grateful for those moments when I know, like when I have that, because I have been a skeptic for sure. um,
Yeah.
going to see
Hmm.
mediums, and so now
Hmm.
having it firsthand, it's really I'm so grateful for that now because
Yeah.
because I get to have that. It's
So
really
I just hope, in recapping for today, we just can leave here knowing
hmm
that life does continue after death, and there is a comfort in that.
hmm
For me, is a
yeah,
comfort,
yeah,
and love really does never die.
it's true. It's true.
So, in thinking of some tips, we'd like to leave you guys with some tips for the week. Um, I'll go ahead and give
Yeah, you were mentioning a book that I think everybody would want to hear about.
Oh, I forgot about the book. Yes. Um, Dying to Be Me by Anita Morjani. She, this is a woman who got very sick with cancer. So her book is, the first half of her book is talking about her health, her experience, and her near-death experience. Her
Mm,
yeah, she had a near-death experience, and where her body shut down, she was in the hospital, it was a bad situation. But she came back and she recovered. And in her recovery, she wrote about what happened to her
oh, I love
while
those
she was
things.
dying, going through
Yeah.
that process, and what she learned from her experience.
Hmm.
And when that book to me was life changing. Oh, so comforting. It was beautiful. And I do feel that she's bringing through what her proof is of what something happened to her, and she came back with this information.
Yeah.
And it's
I have
just,
to
if
read
you're
that.
looking for something, take it with a grain of salt. I'm not saying that you have to believe in everything that everybody says in this book, but wow, it's a book that would really get you thinking.
Yeah.
And and it's exactly what it did for me. It got me thinking, and it opened my mind to, wow, what if, you
Yeah.
know? I highly recommend reading that book or any other book that you might come across, but that was one that really stood out to me. I do highly recommend it. Now, that said, my sister read it and it didn't do the same thing for her,
Okay. Not
but
for everybody.
maybe
Yeah.
it's not for, but it was just, I was ready for it at that time and I really liked it. So I
Yeah.
encourage you guys, anybody who's listening, to if you're still interested in more proof that perhaps life might continue, um, of course, getting it through readings and different kinds of spiritual connections, just such
Hmm.
as Akashic records and many, many other kinds, but even reading a book, and
Yeah.
just start looking for signs in your own experiences. Look for signs from your own loved ones.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
They can come through in different ways. And just
Yeah.
trust it. Sometimes there was an instance last week where I was having I don't want to go into it, but anyway, there was something going on, and and I got into the car, and immediately I heard the song that I know to be like my sign for my mom, and it was just like the right timing to hear
Yeah,
that. There's just no doubt, and it's little things like that that you don't need. I mean, I don't want to put us out of business or whatever, but like you don't need a medium to know and to believe that it
for
is true.
sure.
If you think it is, like if somebody's like, well, I think that could have been my mom. I'm just using the mom. I think it could have been my mom, but I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm like, if you think it was, if that's something that like, yes, they
Yeah.
work so hard to get something through to people, whether it's, some people get the lights turn out or this or that, that they just can't explain. I heard somebody mention some object that was placed in their office that they just can't explain. I mean, there's things like that that like how could that not be a sign of some sort? So I say believe it and know it to be true. And yeah.
Right. And that leads us into kind of like our second tip is be open to those
Mhm.
possibilities.
Yeah.
Be open to the fact that maybe the light flickering is something. Maybe it's an electrical issue you need to pay attention to.
Yes, yes, that is true too. Yeah, some
But
people,
maybe it's not. Maybe it's not a pattern and it's just something that's out of the blue. And be open to the possibilities of things that you can't even imagine.
yeah,
I just
yeah.
think that's we are taught to live in a very black and white world,
Mhm.
and where our possibilities are,
Yeah,
small, but they're not.
yeah,
So I think be open.
yeah,
Be
and it's so
open to
comforting, yeah.
experiencing it. It won't hurt you. Just
Yeah,
think about it. Yeah.
yeah,
So those are
um,
our tips
yeah, so
to
and
leave you
I
with.
what I think is great, and you mentioned, is to put, if anybody has their own stories of their own signs or their own experiences, to put it in the
Oh,
comments below, because I think everybody would really love to read what other people have found
Yes. I
in
would
their
love
stories. Yeah,
I would
so
love to read what other
that's a
people
good
have
place to put it,
experienced.
is down below in the comments, or reach out to us and we can share it in an upcoming episode. But and also like and
Yeah.
subscribe to this channel so that you can know when we put new episodes out. And we also have a landing page website, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
between two mediums, between with the number two mediums.com, where you can find out where we'll be for some upcoming events if you're local, or even online we'll have some events as well. And you can reach out if you want a reading with Kathy or myself there. We have all the details.
Yeah, but I would love the
Yeah.
ideas of people putting things in the
Yeah,
comments
I would love
and
to read what they have to
yeah,
say.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, until next time, go out there, be curious, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.